Dr. Mellor, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to our time together, and I appreciate so many people being here. Last time I came to the Oklahoma Ethics Consortium, it was hosted here, and I went to the Petroleum Club over there. And it is also good to be here with you and be able to see everybody. Today I want to talk about how a growth mindset enhances a culture of ethics. And it's a topic that I'm passionate about, and I hope it's one that you will find interesting as well. But the idea of the growth mindset is really something that became much more popular with the work of Dr. Carol Dweck. And Dr. Carol Dweck wrote a book about mindsets, and it's one that I'd recommend to you. It's not without controversy. She is at Stanford and has really promoted this theory, and it has impacted education significantly, as well as business and some other areas. But in the process of developing this, she came up with the idea that there were two different mindsets. And the first one is a fixed mindset. Now, I want to explain how this works. In a fixed mindset, people believe that their basic qualities, like their intelligence or talent, are simply fixed traits. They spend their time documenting their intelligence or talent instead of developing them. They also believe that talent alone creates success without effort. And so where does this begin? Well, this begins often well-intentioned in childhood. And so you have a kid who comes in and they've made 100 on the spelling test. And a parent says to that child, 100% on your spelling test, congratulations. And then they say this well-intentioned. They say to them, you are so smart. And what can happen is that they begin to work in the currency of smart. And once they have bought into the idea that I am rewarded when I am smart, then they are reluctant to engage in things that do not make them feel or look smart. A fixed mindset. Look at the other side of this. In a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. And so if I look at the growth mindset, it is saying that when you meet someone, you are seeing them as they are in that moment, but that is not necessarily who they have to stay. They stay that way, or they are static in that type of fixed mindset. They could grow. Now think of the difference. Think of how this impacts people. So walking through this, let me show you how it plays out. In a fixed mindset, intelligence is static. This mindset leads to a desire to look smart and therefore a tendency to do the following things. One, I'm going to avoid challenges. Now, why would I do that? Well, I'm going to avoid challenges because I believe that my talent alone is all that I need. Maybe you've seen this, maybe you've been this. I was talking to a student one afternoon, and he was in the MBA program at OBU, and I was talking to him about his life, and he said, you know, I'm in the energy field, but I wanted to be a petroleum engineer. And he said, all throughout high school, I had a perfect 4.0. I really didn't have to study very much. And so when I got to college at Texas A&M, I walked into my first class on the first day. There were 120 students there, and I was on my way to become a petroleum engineer until I got into my first class. And the pace was too fast. I didn't understand what they were talking about. And I concluded pretty quickly, I don't have what it takes to do this. And it broke my heart. Because the problem was This is somebody who had the intelligence that high school was not difficult, and consequently, when he got to a more challenging role, what he found was that he had not learned how to study. He had relied just alone on talent. And when he got into the hard part of life, instead of sticking with it, he changed majors and went on his way. Now, why do they do this? Why do people with a fixed mindset avoid challenges? It's not without rationale. It's because if I believe that I can't grow, I need to stay in the lane that I can succeed in without as much effort, which would be fine if life provided those lanes exclusively. But you continue on, looking at obstacles. With obstacles, they tend to give up easily for the same reason. Why would I continue working on something if I'm not going to be good at it? And I hear people say this kind of thing all the time. They'll say this, I just don't have a math brain. I don't have a languages brain. I don't have an art brain. As if any of those things actually existed. What is the issue? When it doesn't come easily to some people, they conclude, this isn't my thing, when the truth is it could have been. But they didn't know better. I look at effort. How do they approach effort? They see effort as fruitless or worse. I think I'm going the wrong way here. But I know how to fix this because I have a growth mindset. They see effort as fruitless or worse. Same idea. Why would I waste my time? Look at criticism. They ignore useful negative criticism. Why? Because they wouldn't understand my brilliance. Continuing on, the success of others, I feel threatened. This is the big one. I feel threatened by the success of others when I have a fixed mindset. Now, we all have a blend of a fixed and growth mindset. It's not that we're all one or the other, but there are some people who trigger this, don't they? Prior to moving to Oklahoma, I worked at Pepperdine School of Law, and my boss was a guy named Ken Starr. Ever heard of that guy? He was not at all in real life like he was on TV. He was a kind and gentle man, and may have been the best listener I have ever known. Matter of fact, it was a bit unnerving because you would go into his office and I would sit down and I had something to talk to him about, and he would sit there without notes and just stare through you and would just absorb every word you said. So after I moved to Oklahoma City, we had a program, and I'd invited Dr. Starr, Judge Starr, out to be a part of the program. And then we're walking back to the car, and this guy is really smart, and he makes me feel insecure because I have a fixed mindset in the moment. And so we're walking back to the car, and he asks me a question about something, and I know the answer to it. And not only do I know the answer to it, I have the word that I could use that I paid like $1 for. Like, this is a really good word. So instead of using the word that was the easy to understand word, I pulled out the big word, and I am going to drop this word on him to let him know, I've read a book too. So we're walking to the car. He asks me about this, and I say to him, well, that is really a phenomenological study, as we all know. And he stopped. He looked at me and he said this, I don't know what that word means. Would you mind explaining it to me? And I felt like an idiot. Why? Because I was being an idiot. Do you see how this works? Why? Because my insecurity made me use a vocabulary that I wasn't even comfortable with because I had a fixed mindset. And I encountered someone who was extremely talented, who had extreme talent and a growth mindset. He was not threatened by learning. He enjoyed it. Are you following me? So some people have a growth mindset, even most of the time, but then they'll have someone who triggers it, a situation that triggers it, a meeting that triggers it. You've been in a meeting when they were using words you did not know, but you were not going to raise your hand and say, could you go back like 3 words? Why? Because you didn't want to embarrass yourself. We've all been there. But what happens when I'm the person that is working with the currency of smart? If I'm working in the currency of smart, if somebody else walks in the room and they are smart, well, they're going to take my role. And so what are they? They are a competitor versus a collaborator. So what does that mean to me? It means I feel threatened by them. Because if I can't grow and they already have the role, then where do I fit? Fixed mindset. Look at growth mindset. Let me finish this one. Fixed mindset. Those with a fixed mindset may plateau early and achieve less than their full potential. This confirms a deterministic view of the world. Why is that? And I'm not trying to go after the 30 under 30s and the 40s under 40s and the 20s under, I don't know. We have all these things. The problem with that is, often what can happen is we choose the winners too early. And we choose the losers too early. So who's going to be the people who rise to the front? Those who often will have a fixed mindset because they stayed in their lane. They didn't do things that took risks. They didn't do things that might cause them to stumble. And so we celebrate them first, but they tend to plateau because they don't know how to deal with difficult things. And so who do I prefer to work with? Well, you tell me, when was the last time you hired a hotshot and it worked out? Who do I prefer to work with? People who choose not to plateau. Why? Oh, they gain momentum. They gain momentum. And so they may not be in the front of the line early in life, but keep watching, because as others get tired, they're getting stronger. Fixed mindset. Fixed mindset limits us to the things that we do well and limits us from our potential. Now, it impacts organizations in significant ways, and I want to show you how. Look at the growth mindset. In the growth mindset, you have a handful of things that are different. One, if I look at a growth mindset, they embrace challenges. Because if I look at a challenge, it is a pathway. Continuing on with the obstacles, I persist in the face of setbacks. I'm going to continue on all the way through so you can see them. With effort, look at this one. I see effort as the pathway to mastery. Now, I look at my brother. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him later. But I look at my brother, who's an inner city school principal. By the time those kids come to his classes, many of them already have a fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset is this: a person like me is never going to make it in a world like that one. And what is he trying to do? He's trying to attack that mindset because that mindset limits people. It shuts them down. The growth mindset opens them up. So if I have grown up in a challenging environment, if I've grown up in a world of setbacks, if I've grown up in a place that requires effort, those things are the bridge for me out of the situation I'm in. It is not the prison sentence. It is the pathway out. So when I meet people who have been through difficult times, let me tell you up front, I like them. Why? When we talk about ethics, when we talk about character, I will remind you one more time. The price tag of character is suffering. Because where is character born? It is born in pain. It is the choice to persist in suffering that produces character, and that character gives people hope. It's an old idea, and it is true. So who has access to growth? People who believe that their setbacks are not wasted. They are the opportunities for growth. On effort, they see it as a pathway to mastery. Criticism, they learn from it. I'm not saying they like it, but they learn from it. The success of others, look at this one. They find lessons and inspiration in the success of others, because if they did it, maybe I could too. Someone else's success does not rob me of it. It proves that it's possible. And why not me? Why not us? Why not this place? So what happens? Look at this. With the growth mindset, those with a growth mindset reach ever higher levels of achievement. This gives them greater sense of free will. And I'm going to show you why in just a minute. But let me show you how this plays out at work. So looking at the growth mindset at work, what you'll find is there is a fixed mindset and a growth mindset that can play out at work. I have no idea. I guess we're going over there. Fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is this, a culture of genius. You ever worked in a culture like that one? This is a culture of genius. So only the CEO, only the president, only whomever it is, they are the ones that must know. It's a culture of genius. We just need to stand behind them and let them figure out where to go. And when it works, it's beautiful. And when it doesn't, it is always a disaster. The culture of genius, either you have it or you don't. A culture of genius, they labeled you on the way in. This is a high potential person, this isn't. How do you know? Well, I just know. It's a culture of genius. Versus the culture of growth, which is a culture of development. In the culture of development, I believe that all people have access to better opportunities if they're willing to take them. All people are designed to grow. And so what does that mean for us? Look at this from the Harvard Business Review for 2014. Employees in a growth mindset company are 47% more likely to say that their colleagues are trustworthy. Why? Because I don't have to act like I know things when I don't. I can ask you for counsel. I can seek your advice. 34% are more likely to feel a strong sense of ownership and commitment to the company. Why? The company did not stop growing with them when they hired them. The company says that's who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This is who you are now, but you are not trapped. You're not labeled. Continuing on with it. 65% are more likely to say that the company supports risk-taking, and 49% are more likely to say that the company fosters innovation. Why? Failure is a step towards success. We try something, it doesn't work. It is not that the genius has lost their capacity. It is the genius of collaboration. It is the genius of development. My losses are not complete losses. My losses are redeemed when I learn from it. And you see how this plays out. Well, continuing on. When entire companies embrace a growth mindset, their employees report feeling far more empowered and committed. They also receive far greater organizational support for collaboration and innovation. In contrast, people at primarily fixed mindset companies report more of only one thing: cheating and deception among employees, presumably to gain an advantage in the talent race. Do you see how this plays out? I'm not going to tell someone else what I know, because if that's the only currency I have, I'm not going to share the answer, because I'm the genius that's supposed to have the answer. And if somebody else has it, well, that's a problem. Do you see how this plays out? Now, what's exciting about this is its implications for ethics. When I'm dealing with ethics, when I'm dealing with an organization that is trying to be ethical, what it says is, Who we have been is not who we have to be. We can learn from it. We can grow with it. We are not fixed. We are not stuck. A few more things. How to adopt a growth mindset culture. Start at the top. Don't just reward effort, recognize learning. Now, there was a well-intentioned thing that we told people a while ago, a generation in the past, which was this: reward effort. But here's the problem. We rewarded effort in the goal of giving people better self-esteem, but the problem was we said great effort, but they still lost. I have to connect the effort with learning. Let me give you an example. They had two parents, they were using this as an example, that had kids in a swim meet. One had a fixed mindset, the other had a growth mindset. Fixed mindset parents. The kid got third place in the swim meet. And they said this: congratulations, you got third place. The parents said, third place? You know what? This place is rigged. It has always been political here. They've never wanted us to succeed here. We are not coming back to this swim meet. Why? Fixed mindset. Can't grow. Watch. Growth mindset. Parent comes up, kid gets third place in the swim meet. The parent says, congratulations. Now you know how hard you have to work to get to second. This is my concern for this generation. Why? Because we grew up, I never had a conversation with anybody about which classes I took at school, much less the teacher. And so what happened? You took the classes you're supposed to take, you had the teachers who might have been horrible, and even your parents thought they were horrible, but they weren't going to tell you that they agreed. Why? Sometimes life is hard. Learn. Now, I'm not saying that that was a better world. I am saying it was a different world. And what can happen now is if you have a fixed mindset and you find that that first class that you took that you're not good at naturally, and now you have to work extra hard at it, and you don't, what you end up doing is stopping going down that path, and now I take the path of least resistance, and my entire life has changed because of it. How do I know? Been there. How many of you designed your college experience to try to get away from as many math classes as possible? I chose a doctoral program that did not have a language requirement. Why? I wanted to pass. Why? Because I had convinced myself I did not have a languages brain because I didn't understand how the brain works. It seemed easy for other people. But what did I not see? The hours upon hours upon hours that they put into it. My daughter is an amazing artist, and I'm not biased. Maybe a little bit. My daughter is an amazing artist. She's a freshman in college, just started. She does sculpture, and she does painting, and she does graphic design and things like that, graphic art. She's so good that Pixar contacted her and said, can we use your stuff on our Instagram? I'm a little bit biased. And this is what people will say to her. They will walk up to her and they'll say this: you are so talented. I could never do something like that. And let me tell you what they don't see. Hour upon hour upon hour upon hour of her trying to get just the right angle. And so what do? They go and try art for the first time, and it is not pretty. Why? Because they are novices. And they conclude, well, if it's going to be something I can do, I should be able to do this easily right now. Untrue statement. So what do you want to do? Unrecognized learning? I want you to reconsider things like this. Instead of saying things like the use of the mantra that undermine our growth mindset, instead of saying find your passion, use develop your passion. I'm not trying to be legalistic here. I'm just trying to open it up a bit. Instead of find your passion, because how many of you are maybe in this situation in your own life, or you're watching your kids in the same situation where they can't seem to find the thing that's their thing? Why? It may not exist. So instead of finding your passion, it's developing your passion. One of my mentors, he grew up in a home where his mother was an invalid. He always wanted to play the piano, but they couldn't have the sound. Became very successful, was a university president. And at the age of 68, he bought himself a piano and began learning with children's books. Now, what was his passion? He wanted to play the piano. What did it require? Developing the passion. If you say you want to be an artist, be an artist. If you say you want to learn to work on cars, get YouTube. They've got some stuff. But don't say this, I'm just not mechanically inclined. Because you well may be if you give yourself a little time. My brother loves working with wood. It's taken him a long time. For 2 years, he volunteered 1 day a week to work with master craftsmen to learn the art. Now he makes musical instruments that he doesn't play. He makes these beautiful wooden kayaks that he has never been in one. He just thinks they're kind of hard to make, so they're a challenge for him. What did it take? Evidently, 2 years of giving every Friday to learn something you weren't paid for. Why do I love that about him? Because he developed his passion. Continuing on, what do? I reward people. Look at this. I reward people. You can't actually see this one now because it's messed up. But let me tell you what it said anyway, because I don't know how you're going to see any of that anyway. But it says, reward people for choosing the challenging path. And focus on statements that reward the process. Watch. This is the number one difference. Growth mindset, fixed mindset parents. Growth mindset parents. They say to their kid, you made 100 on your spelling test. Unbelievable. Tell me what you did to get that. What did they do? They linked the determination. They linked the dedication to the outcome. Tell me how you got there. Now, in addition, when you're willing to try a more difficult path, when someone at work is trying a more difficult path, reward them for choosing the challenging path. Don't crush them when they find that the challenging path is challenging for a reason. Give them opportunities for growth. Don't label them. Continuing on, last little bit. This is my favorite thing, and if there's one thing I could leave with you today, it is this. Add the word yet to your statements. Or to the screen. There we go. Add the word yet to your statements. Watch what I mean. I don't know how to speak Spanish yet. I don't know how to read the financials yet. I don't know how to lead a meeting like that one yet. I don't know how we're going to get there from here. I've never done sales before. I don't know how to sell yet. Put the word yet into the concept. Look at the next one. Promote character and ethical behavior as something that is learned and must be taught. There is a fallacy on the idea of ethics and character development that it is learned by the time you're 12, and good luck. We say it all the time. You have to hire for character, train for skill, because you can't teach character. I want to be crystal clear on this. Character is something that must be learned at all points in life. It is not something that you have attained. It is a process. And why do I say that? I've said this to you before. Think about this. If you could have a conversation with you of 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, do you think you could give yourself some pretty good advice? Why? Because you have grown. So why do we focus on ethics? Why do we focus on character? Because it can be changed. It can only be learned, and it must be taught. And the reality is, character is never formed in isolation. Character is always formed in community, and that's why this community matters so much. So why has Oklahoma been able to produce the world's greatest entrepreneurs of the past century? Because we had a growth mindset. What is the challenge for our future? That we maintain it, that we remain open to it, that we don't think of ourselves being boxed in, limited, blocked, but that we look to the future and say that the things that we do matter, even the small things. So if I look to what we're looking for here in Oklahoma now, it doesn't take many organizations to come together and say, we're going to do life like this. We're going to be willing to grow. It doesn't take many before it becomes a way of doing things. And it's the small things that matter. Because we live in a world that gives us options. 6 weeks ago, I got a phone call from my father. It was in the evening, almost 9 o'clock. I've been working all week and traveling, and I came home and I said to my wife something I don't normally say. I said, I don't feel well and I'm going to bed. And then the phone rang. And it was my dad. And there was clearly something wrong. And he was breathing heavily. And he said, he's breathing, he can't speak. And he says, your brother has been shot twice. He's alive. He's on his way to the hospital. We're trying to get there now. I'm running to the car. Then like a dad, he says, now I don't want you to do anything. Just want you to know. I was already packing as if I was going to sit at home. My brother had kidney cancer 4 years ago and had one of the kidneys removed, and I figured if you got shot twice in the torso, you might need a kidney. I don't know how that works. I just thought maybe they need one. I assume now they probably want to do like some testing and things. Didn't have that in school. Driving over there late at night, early morning. And I get the text. The surgeon has come out and he said this, his wounds are survivable. And they put him in a medically induced coma and he would stay there for the next week. I was just about an hour and a half away when I got the text that said he was going to make it. Problem was, this is in Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And the next morning, my wife and my daughters were on their way to go to Harding University, where my daughter was about to start her freshman year, and we were dropping her off the next day. A bit of an emotional roller coaster. Drive from the hospital to the university, and my car keeps dying, which reminded me a lot of my life in college, when I had a car that never worked, or a series of cars that never worked. My first car cost $150. It was 1978 Plymouth Valari. Sold it to another guy for $50 and ripped him off. I mean, it was, you think I'm kidding, I'm really not. If you want to see the road, you could just look up or down at your feet, either way. I get near the campus and the car dies completely. I get it started again, and then I can see the campus, and I've got enough momentum in the car that it rolls into the parking lot under no power, and I stop the car 200 yards from my daughter's dorm. I had made it 500 miles. So thankful. Got out of the car and went in, loaded up my daughter in her dorm room, which is so crazy that they accept 6-year-olds now. I don't know why. She's just a kid. Why are they taking her? And I expected tears. I did not have tears. What I felt like was I was going to throw up. Shutting that door and walking off. Now, I had made a major mistake because 6 months earlier, the university said, would you do the pre-session faculty training? And I had agreed, not knowing what it feels like to drop your kid off. Then they wanted me to speak at the faculty dinner, and they brought back the woman who changed my life, the teacher who redirected my entire life, brought her back, Professor Emeritus, and they put her right there in front of me just to see if I'd cry. And I mentioned that my car had died. And it was out in the parking lot, covered in bugs, because I think I got them all, from Oklahoma to Arkansas, through the night. And one of the faculty sent me a text. And he said, my dad works on cars. He's a mechanic here in town. Would you mind if I took your car to him? I hate stuff like that. And I was desperate. And I said, I sure would appreciate it. He took my car over there. And he called later in the day. He said, your car is ready. I said, where do I go get it? He said, actually, we'll drive it over to you. And I went to where they told me to meet him, and I got there, and the car had been perfectly detailed. And I reached to my back pocket to get my card out. It was the alternator. And he put his hands up in surrender. And he said, you're not paying for this one. I won't tell you who, but they told me not to let you pay for this. It doesn't take a lot of light in the darkness to make it not be so dark. But somebody has to choose to do something that changes the atmosphere. A few years ago, I sat at a table like this one, just down the road. I sat next to the mayor of Kigali, Rwanda, where 850,000 people were killed in 90 days in the genocide. And she looked over at me and she said to me, she said, the future of Rwanda, she said, Kigali, the future of Kigali is character. She said, there were people who planned to do evil. And now there must be people who plan to do good. That is why we are here. That is why the largest gathering of companies and universities in the state happens when we're talking about the kind of neighborhoods and communities and companies we want to be connected to. Because there is one thing that is the future of Oklahoma, and it is our character. It is how we choose to do life. It is the choice to plan for good. To conclude, it's a better way of doing life. The data already indicates it is a better way to do business. Because people say this to me, they say, we'll make less money, but it's okay to make less money if I can sleep well at night. Let me be crystal clear with you. No data would tell you you have to make that sacrifice. Companies that act ethically outperform other companies consistently. Publicly traded companies that have been researched for the last 25 years, year over year over year. Companies that choose to be ethical make more money. And they make a difference in the same time. So why are we doing this? Because I believe that the best years of this state are still ahead of us. But it comes down to us believing that we are growing, not believing that we have been labeled or could be labeled. We are not defined. We are defining. So when I look to the future of our schools, when I look to the future of our universities, when I look to the future of our companies, we make a decision about how to do life. And we plan to do it well. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for what we get to talk about here. But don't walk out of here thinking to yourself that the changes that need to happen are just at a corporate level. There is always an opportunity to serve. And it is the small things. It is the small things that matter. It is the small acknowledgement. It is letting somebody out of the traffic, especially here. I don't know if you tried to get out of here before. It is the decision that I'm going to make life better for somebody today. My brother came out of his coma. And it was hard on him. It's still hard on him. But let me tell you something. I wish this had not happened to my brother. But I actually believe he would have let it happen to see the unity in the school that formed around their principal. Because my brother is the type of principal that goes into a place and you would want him for your kids because he does not give up on kids. Because he believes that they can grow. And so they came together, and there's never been anything like this before at their little school, Lawson Elementary. But they got the banners, they got the wristbands, they got the whole thing, and they all said the same thing, Lawson strong. And nobody has said that about Lawson before. That's the school that has the 100% breakfast and they have the 100% lunch. And let me tell you why. Because my brother recognized it's hard for kids to pay attention when they're hungry. So what did he do? We're going to have 100% breakfast. We're going to have 100% lunch. But we're not just going to serve the kids food. We're going to serve it to them in the classroom with the teacher, family style. Why? He chose to do good. And how many people have to believe in you for you to have a chance to believe in yourself? They didn't say Mellor strong. They said Lawson strong. And I look at you, and I'm telling you, it is a hard thing. It is a hard thing to do the right thing. But it's contagious. So my brother came out of the coma, and I wish we'd recorded some things. He said some really funny things. I had said to my mother, what we ought to do is hire some actors so that he wakes up and he says, "Who are you?" And they said, "We're your family." "What are you talking about?" "We don't." I saw an opportunity. She said, "That's not appropriate." I said, "We could bring back his ex-wife. That seems like a pretty good thing." That was also deemed wrong. I think the word was wrong. It was a botched robbery. A friend of his, entrepreneur, likes to buy a few cars every year for fun. Found a car on Facebook, a marketplace, negotiated it out, got there, supposed to pick up the car at a car lot. And they got there and they said, "Well, actually, it's right behind," and moved over, and it was a setup. Pulled the gun. My brother's friend pulled his gun in response. The guy, aiming for his head, shot the gun, hit his index finger, went down his wrist. Saved his life. My brother gets shot once through the side, all the way through the torso, where the bullet stopped over here after taking out his spleen, puncturing his lung, breaking his ribs, diaphragm, missed his kidney. The other one went through and through in his back. But when his lung was punctured, it caused him to double over because the other bullets went through the headrest. Saved his life. My brother is not himself yet. He's getting there. Within the first hour of being awake, he said, "We've got to do something about this. what happened in that young man's life that he would consider life so cheap. We've got to do something about this. Because I know my brother was a victim, but I guarantee you the guy that shot him was too. So where do we begin? Where do we begin? Maybe here. Seems like this is a pretty good gathering. And what are we going to do? We're not going to give up on people. We're not going to decide that they have already become who they will be. We're going to grow. We're going to keep growing because we don't know what we could do just yet. But I like the view up from here. We got a lot of people up here that I can see that are pretty dedicated to making a difference. You don't talk to someone like Paco Valderrama and think to yourself the world's a bad place. You talk to someone like him and you think to yourself, that man's someone I could get behind. You know? I could go through the room. And I wish I could. I could go through the room and point out here and here and here and there. And what am I seeing? I'm seeing people who are saying it is dark, but it doesn't have to stay dark. Your act of kindness, your act of goodness makes a difference. I got all intense today. I didn't mean to be all intense. Maybe I need to get some sleep or something, but we don't have to live like this. This is a choice. So at the capital city, right here, right now, in view of the Capitol, let's make a choice. Let's band together as a group and decide that the future of Oklahoma is connected to its ethics, its character, and its people. When I moved here, people kept telling me that. Best thing about Oklahoma is its people. Then maybe we ought to invest in our people a little bit more if that's the best thing that we have. I'm so thankful that you're here. There will be a time to give up, but it is not now. Thank you for what you do, and let's make a difference. Thank you.